Hi, my bows and bow ties. So, you know, I was just sitting here and I was thinking about some things. Let me take this little thing off so you guys can see me. Um, I was just thinking about why we need to start traveling with our kids. Well, I travel with my children, but I feel like many of us, blacks, don't travel with our kids. We don't do it enough. And I have so many thoughts on this. I even wrote down a couple of bullets, but I have so many thoughts on this. I think this light is just a little too weird. I think I'm going to turn off this light. Let me go ahead and hold on one second. I'm here. Let me see what this looks like without this light. All right. Let's see. Maybe this is better. It's not too much interference. But I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine today, and I was just talking about how in my old neighborhood, it was a relatively affluent neighborhood, okay? So it was a beautiful neighborhood, but it was interesting. Our neighborhood, the tax base went towards a school that was just underperforming, and it just wasn't a really good fit for the kids, right? But I noticed in the neighborhood that I lived in, like the parents would be dressed to the nines. They would be flossing. They would all the way floss, and they had these wonderful cars and outfits, and their hair was done. And some of the kids were just as dumb as a box of rocks. I felt like they would invest in all these material things, but no investment in the children, no investment in tutors or expanded education or anything like that. And it's not to say that they didn't care about their kids, but I just felt like it gave like very new money. Heck, I feel like I'm new money, right? Um, I just felt like there was so much investment in things that didn't matter. So anyway, let me jump into my points. You know, a few years back, someone had mentioned to me, I noticed that your children don't have all the latest gear or something along those lines. And so my kids have decent clothes, but like, I mean, they still get stuff from like Target or TJ Maxx or I don't know, whatever, right? I mean, they still get things from like Under Armour or Nike or any of those things, but like we never really taught our kids a lot of labels. And part of that was because there was a significant period of time that they were attending private schools, so especially Christian private schools. So basically, they took that away, right? So my kids were never really brought up on the label saying. I mean, they're aware of some of them now, but it's not like a thing. But anyway, someone had mentioned, I notice that your children don't wear like the latest gear and blah blah blah, and it made me pause. I said, well, yeah, that's not what's important for us. And this person cleaned it up and was like, yeah, but I noticed that you take your kids a lot of places. I said, this is the thing. We're really concerned about building generational wealth and exposing our kids. It's really important to us. We do have a number in mind that we want to have make. Our, we want to leave a legacy, and we want our kids to have that. So to include in this legacy, it's and I have a point to all this. It's making sure that they don't have um, undergraduate school debt. Okay, now what happens at the master's and PhD level? Should they continue to go farther? It's up to them. I said, but we invest in their education. We invest in our homes. We invest in we invest. But one of the things is their education to include. When I say world class education, it doesn't always mean private school. My kids attend a public school now. So, well, why do I think we need to start traveling with our children? When I say we, I'm talking about the culture. I'm talking about the blacks. I'm actually talking about many Americans, but I'm speaking specifically to black people. I think it's important to travel with our kids for a variety of reasons. Number one, I think, sorry, I got all these things. It's literally a world class education. It's one of those things you guys have heard the old term, I can show you better than I can tell you, right? Just whether when you get on a plane with children, just the wonder they have. I have one child who swears he's going to be a pilot. I have one child, when he gets on a plane, he takes his iPad because there's some software on his, well, there's an application, I'm sorry, on his iPad. And it's like a simulation. It's like it mimics what's happening. So he's doing all this stuff, on his iPad. And he also has a full up set of paddles in like the real software that like the pilots like they train on downstairs. And in the basement we have a computer. He has a full up software thing, so he can mimic flying out of any of our local airports with the real maps and GPS and all of the good stuff. He sees all the controls and everything. And a lot of that came from getting on planes, just like trying to like process like, how is this plane taking us in the air? Why does it look like we're not going very fast? There's science and technology, just physics involved in that. There's so much that's involved. I mean, like, it gets really complicated, right? You can even talk about fluid dynamics. Now, I'm not going to have a conversation with my children on fluid dynamics. Heck, I can't remember half of that stuff. But just the act of getting to the airport and navigating through an airport, you have to be able to read and write. Now, it seems so simple, but you have to be able to process information. What's happening? How do I get through TSA? 2 out of my 4 kids have TSA pre-check now. You know, to be able to get through and understand. Hold on a second. I need to tell my kids to pipe down. Hey, guys. I was supposed to mute, and I took my video off. Let's try this again. All right, there we go. But just the act of getting on a plane, right? There's things that have to happen. You have to be able to follow complex directions. Where do we need to go? What do we need to do? We got to have our identification. We have to have our passes. We got to go through all these different things. They know how to travel. They learn how to pack now, right? Because they've done it enough. So when they're doing these things, they look at things like, okay, this is what I'm going to need for my comfort on the plane at my destination. How to travel. What does it mean to travel? Don't come through here. I'm live. So, yeah, they have to learn all of these things, following directions. How do we get there? How do we navigate to our gate, right? What does that mean? What is it like eating? What is it like, just eating at the airport, right? It costs a lot of money at the airport. What can you bring? What can you not bring? Understanding that your options change. But just the fact that boarding the plane, there's so many things that have to happen. Now, I'm not saying in order to travel, you have to get on a plane. You can take a train, you can take a boat, you can take a car. I am live right now. But the interesting thing about when you're traveling with your kids, you have to be able to allow them the opportunity to explore and to learn. That's part of the education. Telling them that they need to follow directions and all these things is different than when you put them in an environment where it's unfamiliar. But check this out. The part of this world-class education, whether you're stateside or whether you are international, it's the exposure to new foods, developing the palate, right? Learning how to speak and say other things, like just developing that palate. You see something, you see a new spin on pasta or a dessert or meat or how it's cut or how it's presented, how things are plated, you know, all the different silverware, stuff like that. Because we don't eat with a full set of like silverware here, right? Like we do the basics. Like we're not sitting here with the salad fork and your main entree and your spoon for your coffee and your spoon for this. We don't go through all that, right? But when you take your children and you expose them, it's like a whole world full of possibilities. Just trying the new foods. Whenever we go away, we know that when they're trying foods, much of this is not going to be eaten. So it becomes like my other meal. I just feel like when I remember when I was in my old neighborhood and people would invest so much into their car, their lawn, or whatever, but they wouldn't invest in taking their kids anywhere. They would leave their kids, I guess, so that they can have their own. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have time to yourselves. But it was more important to leave their kids so they can have this vacation. And I kind of felt like my children didn't ask to be here. Don't get me wrong. I will be leaving my kids and going on vacation with my husband. But I just find it to be highly important. It's super important to travel with your children so that when they get older, it's not like it's brand new. Let me say this. I remember the first time I traveled, I was 18, well, on a plane. My first plane trip that I know of, I was 18 going on 19 years old. And I was flying international with my college. I was a freshman that was selected to with my advisor and his PhD students. Now, let me just say for the record, the PhD students were, I couldn't even understand the abstract. It was on intense terahertz lasers back when I used to be a physics major. I was selected because they choose one freshman a year. I was selected, but it's on my computer screen. What is that? Okay. So they select one freshman a year. My advisor, Professor Zhang, and we went to China. So here I am. I just completed my freshman year, and it's so embarrassing. We're all getting on the plane, and I'm like, "So where do you want to sit?" And they're like, "What do you mean, where do you want to sit?" I'm like, "Where do you want to sit?" They're like, "No, look at your ticket." I was such a ding dong. I was like, "Oh, like I guess assigned seats." I thought it was just get on with me, find a spot. We flew to China, and that was probably the first and last time I ever had culture shock. I was on the other side of the world. Now check this out. Not only was I on the other side of the world, I was wearing my hair straight then. I brought my flat iron, burnt out part of my hair on this side. I remember because I had these longer tresses, and I went to go flat iron my hair, and I had different voltage. Put that thing and held it on there, and just took that right on out. I was like, what? So I had this little patch of hair here. So then I was like, whoa. So then I was trying to like guess because I didn't have the transformer piece. I didn't even know to ask for one, right? This is how ignorant I was. I didn't know much of I'm live, so you're just gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait, honey. So much of my education was turn off the light, please. Turn off the light, please. Much of my education was spent right there in the moment. I didn't know to ask for a transformer. I didn't know anything about traveling. I didn't know how to navigate an airport or get on a plane. I mean, I could figure it out, but luckily I was with a group of people. I get there, and I've been around many Asian people, all kinds of cultures before. But for whatever reasons, I was sitting in China like, oh my goodness. The food I was eating, I'll never forget. There was some sort of claw thing, and the chicken looked weird, and they were like, "We got to try it." And I wasn't really all that great with chopsticks. I had used them before, but when I got there, they said, "You will not get any utensils until you can master chopsticks." And we're like jet lag, and I was just a full on fool. I was clowning. Actually, all of us were really, but I was like very American. I didn't know how to handle. God bless you, babe. I didn't know how to handle people asking me, "What are you? What are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? I'm American." Blah blah blah. Like they're like, "Well, what are you?" I'm like, "I'm black." They're like, "No, you're not. You have a lying problem." I'm like, "I don't know. You got a lying problem?" Like like I had to learn on the spot that at least then, this was back in 1999. I I had to teach them that black people came in all colors. But this was a world class education for me because my whole world was centered in where I was from, United States. I went to school in the Northeast, and now I'm on this plane. I end up in China. I'm supposed to be studying intense terahertz lasers, something I know nothing about. I'm in a foreign land where people think I'm a liar because I kept saying I'm black. And then when I said I was black, they were like, "Well, sing like Whitney Houston." And I was like, "I'm not your court jester." Like, I'm like, "No, I don't sing like Whitney Houston." So I'm sitting in China. We were traveling around. We get on the subway. At the time, we had these like little business cards back in the day when people had business cards, and I knew how to write my name in Chinese and stuff like that. But we had these little business cards that said, "Hey, if I get lost, take me back to Beijing University." I forgot where it was. I think Yuan Ming. I forgot what the school was, but it was almost like we were going to have like exchange students that upcoming fall, but we were there to visit the local school. We were on the subway. I have a point to all this. We were on the subway, and I wasn't really paying attention too much. There was a group of all of the group of us, and we had like a translator, one or two to a group or whatever. But I had one with me really. So I'm with the translator, and we get on this subway. Now I don't know if you guys know anything about Chinese subways. There's like a million people, like a bajillion, a famillion on the subway. Not knowing any better, I get on and I'm pushed way to the back. Now, I don't know if you guys know this. Back in my fit or final younger days, I was really tiny. I'm like 5'6" now. I went into college about 5'4.5". I grew like another inch or whatever. But I was basically 5'5". When I entered in college, I was 97 pounds. At the end of my freshman year, I was a little like about 110-ish, give or take, because I was unattractive. I was I was tiny. I get pushed way to the back of the subway, and my translator guy was like, he just starts saying stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. He's like, no, 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 no. Because we were supposed to get off at this other exit. The problem was I'm so far back. Everyone's getting off, but ding dong right here didn't know any better. And I'm looking at them getting off. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I'm going. And luckily, my translator guy was like saying something, he's screaming, and the people understood what he was saying. The Chinese, the local Chinese people understood what he was saying. And so they're holding open the subway door and they're trying to shove me off because this train is getting ready to go. Where am I going with all this? All of my learning happened right then and there, right? I didn't know anything. I had never traveled. No one told me what to expect. And that's just one thing. I almost passed out in Tiananmen Square because it was like 500 degrees over there in the summer. And I'm wearing jeans. I had on a short sleeve shirt, but I had on these hot jeans. I was just a mess. So many things I could talk about. So many things, but I don't want to hijack what this conversation is about. Where I'm going with this is I was so sheltered. I didn't have a lot of money growing up, but I grew up middle class, but really more like lower middle class, to be honest. I didn't know how poor we were because all of my needs were met. I mean, I've done some things, but not really. Like, I've left the state and all that kind of stuff like that. I've had a couple of road trips, right? Where I'm going with that was when you expose your kids early on, they know how to travel. They know how to move in different environments. They can use their imagination. Like, okay, I've been in these, and I've been through this before. This doesn't look like what I'm used to. Maybe they don't speak the same language. Maybe they do. Trying different foods. Like I said, it's a big deal. I got there when I went to China. I'm 18 going on 19. This is the end of my freshman year. I was 18 years old. And I'm sitting at this table, and my advisor is like, Asia, you have to try